Have you ever noticed that one person who always fixes everything, even when nobody asked, even when they are exhausted, even when it costs them their peace, and somehow they still feel guilty if they stop? If that is you, listen closely, because the psychology behind feeling responsible for everyone is not just kindness. It is a survival strategy that learned how to wear a smile. You do not wake up one day and decide, I will carry the emotional weight of my friends, my family, my partner, my coworkers, and sometimes complete strangers. It builds slowly, quietly, like a habit that pretends it is a personality. And the scary part is this. People praise you for it. They call you mature, reliable, the strong one, the helper, the one who has it together. But inside, it often feels like you are on duty 24 hours a day. Like if you relax, something bad will happen and it will be your fault. Here is the psychology of people who feel responsible for everyone. 1. You learn that love comes with a job description. Most people think responsibility is a choice. For you, it was a condition. Maybe you grew up in a house where emotions were unpredictable. One day everything was fine. Next day, a storm. And you figured out that the safest thing to do was to manage the atmosphere. So you became hyper-aware. You watched faces, you listened for tone, you scanned for danger. That is not overthinking. That is nervous system training. Psychologists call this hypervigilance. It often develops when a child becomes the emotional regulator in a home that has no regulator. You learn a simple equation. If I keep everyone calm, I am safe. If I do not, I will pay for it. And then adulthood arrives and your brain still runs the same program. You do not just notice problems, you feel responsible to solve them. Because deep down, solving is how you earned closeness. So when someone is upset, you rush in. Not because you want attention, because silence feels like a threat. 2. You confuse empathy with control. You care deeply. You can read people. You feel what they feel. That sounds like emotional intelligence. But there is a thin line between empathy and control. And people who feel responsible for everyone often cross it without realizing. When you feel someone else suffering, your mind tries to reduce the discomfort as fast as possible. So you give advice. You over-explain. You make plans. You offer solutions. You take the wheel. Not always because they need it. Sometimes because you cannot tolerate watching them struggle. This is where cognitive bias sneaks in. It is called the illusion of responsibility. Your brain overestimates how much your actions influence other people's outcomes. It thinks, if they are sad, I failed. If they are stressed, I should fix it. But here's the twist. Trying to control outcomes can look like care, yet it can be driven by anxiety. Because if you truly let people live their own lives, you face a terrifying idea. Their pain might happen anyway, and that means you were never in control. So responsibility becomes a shield, a way to feel powerful in a world that once felt unsafe. 3. You became the strong one, but it was not always a compliment. Have you ever heard, "You are so strong," and felt like it was a sentence? People who feel responsible for everyone often got rewarded for being calm when others were falling apart. Maybe you were the oldest. Maybe you were the peacemaker. Maybe you were the kid who never caused problems because you could sense there was no space for your needs. So you learned to be low maintenance, to not ask for too much, to handle your own feelings quietly. And now, even when you are drowning, you still show up for others. You still reply fast. You still check on everyone. You still perform stability. This connects to a personality pattern called conscientiousness. High conscientiousness can make you dependable and successful. But when it mixes with fear, it turns into emotional overfunctioning. You do more than your share. You anticipate. You prevent. You over-deliver. Not because you love work, but because you are trying to avoid guilt. And guilt is the engine here. Also, notice how asking for help feels unnatural. You would rather struggle than risk being a burden. When someone offers support, you say you are fine. That is not pride. That is conditioning. You learn that needs create tension, so you hide them. You feel guilty resting, guilty saying no, guilty prioritizing yourself. Because somewhere along the line, you started believing that your value is measured by how useful you are. 4. You carry other people's emotions, then wonder why you feel empty. Let me describe a familiar scene. Someone vents to you. You listen. You comfort them. You reassure them. You leave the conversation, and suddenly your mood is gone. Your energy is drained. Your chest feels heavy. And you do not even know why. That is emotional contagion. Your brain mirrors what other people feel, and your body stores it like it is yours. People who feel responsible for everyone often have porous emotional boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They let love in without letting chaos move in. Without that filter, you absorb. You also tend to become the unofficial therapist, the emotional first responder, the person everyone calls when life breaks. But here is what nobody tells you. If you are always the container, you will eventually run out of space. And then the resentment starts. Quiet resentment. The kind that makes you feel bad because you are supposed to be grateful that people trust you. So you smile. You say it is fine. And inside, you think, why am I always the one? That resentment is not selfishness. It is your needs trying to speak after being silenced for years. 5. You think saying no will make you a bad person. This point is huge. People who feel responsible for everyone usually have a distorted association between boundaries and rejection. To you, saying no feels like abandoning, like being cold, like being selfish, so you soften it. You explain. You apologize. You offer alternatives. You over-justify, because you are not just setting a boundary, you are trying to manage how the other person will feel about it. That is people-pleasing, but deeper. It is fear of relational loss. In psychology, this often connects to anxious attachment. When love felt inconsistent, you learn to keep people close by being needed. So you become indispensable. You become helpful. You become the one who never disappoints. But the price is high. If people only stay because you carry them, then you never get to find out who would stay if you simply existed. That is the painful truth. And here is another cognitive trap, the sunk cost fallacy. You have invested so much energy into being the responsible one that changing feels like losing everything you built, so you keep going, even when it breaks you. Now, let us talk about the shift. The moment you stop confusing responsibility with worth, because being responsible is not the problem. Being responsible for everyone is. Here are a few signs you are ready to heal. You start noticing your body. The tension in your shoulders when you say yes but mean no. The fatigue after saving someone again. The way your stomach drops when you see a message that looks like drama. Your body keeps score. It always has. You start asking a new question. Not, how do I fix this? But, is this mine to fix? That question is life-changing. You also begin to separate compassion from rescue. Compassion says, I care about you. Rescue says, I will carry it for you. One is love, the other is control disguised as love. And when you practice boundaries, something strange happens. At first, people may react. Some will guilt trip you. Some will test you. Some will suddenly call you different. But that reaction is information. It tells you whether the relationship was built on mutual respect or on your constant emotional labor. And yes, you might lose some connections, but what you gain is your nervous system back. You gain your time back. You gain your identity back. Because when you stop being responsible for everyone, you finally meet the part of you that has been waiting. The part that wants to rest without permission. The part that wants to be cared for. The part that wants to be loved without earning it. So here is the takeaway. If you feel responsible for everyone, it does not mean you are broken. It means you adapted. You became strong early. You became aware early. You learned to survive by holding things together. But survival is not the same as living. You are allowed to be kind without being responsible. You are allowed to support without sacrificing. You are allowed to love people and still let them handle their own storms. because your job is not to save everyone. Your job is to save a space for yourself. If this hit a little too close, leave a comment with one word: responsible, so you know you are not alone. And if you want more psychology videos that make you understand yourself in a new way, you can subscribe. I will see you in the next one.